everyone, so today I am bringing you my December reviews. I only read 4 books in December. I was really busy with writing papers and I didn't actually end up reading anything for pleasure until the 19th when my last paper was handed in, and I just didn't have a chance to read anything, but I did get through 4 books, which I am still pretty impressed with myself, considering that, I didn't read for like 2/3 of the month, and yeah, so the first thing that I read is I finished this collection of short fiction by Mary Wollstonecraft and Mary Shelley, and I finished it by reading Maria. I had started this the previous month and finished off Mary and did a review of that, and I've already read Matilda, but I hadn't finished Maria, and I found it really interesting. I didn't quite connect to it the same way I did Mary. I think Maria was left unfinished at the time of her death, if I am remembering correctly, and it was a weaker story, but it was really interesting. It deals with a woman who has been locked in a mental institution by her husband because he's finding her problematic, and it deals with kind of issues of abandonment and grief, and just in a really interesting way. But definitely, I think Mary, because it was actually completed, is the stronger of the two fiction. But definitely check this out if you're interested in reading kind of early feminist works. I really enjoyed reading some of Mary Wollstonecraft's shorter fiction, because I've read her Vindication on the Rights of Women, but I hadn't read any of her fiction, and I found this really interesting. The Hardy that I read on my Kindle, which I have in this really pretentious leather case, and that is The Hand of Ethelberta. This was the last Hardy I had to read in his entire bibliography. I have now completed all of Thomas Hardy's works. This was a middling work for me. I didn't think it was particularly amazing. I didn't think it was particularly bad. There's definitely worse Hardys, there's definitely better Hardys. It just kind of was retreading on the same kind of pattern that it always has. But what's interesting about Ethelberta is that she is a woman of lower standing, like lower class standing, who is passing as somebody of the nobility and is presented at court and all this due to her marriage, and her parents are actually serving like servants. And it's an interesting take on late Victorian society, but it just didn't quite have the same charm that books like, you know, The Return of the Native or The Woodlanders had for me. And then next up, on my train ride home, I finished Jean Rhys's Good Morning Midnight. This was a gift from the lovely Nicola over at Robotnik. We both agreed this book is confusing. We're not quite sure how to rate it, but we did both enjoy it. This is set in 1930s Paris. It kind of deals with a woman, and the narrative kind of shifts from her life in the present, where she's kind of just bumbling around and dealing with some grief and some kind of unsettledness about herself, and her past life where she just kind of, things got a bit messed up. And it was very unsettling in that respect, and it stuck with me over the past couple days since I finished it, and I've been turning it over in my mind. It's not, I would say I definitely prefer Wide Saragossa Sea to this, but I would say in terms of Voyage in the Dark, I definitely preferred Good Morning Midnight. So as far as Rhys's fiction goes, this is about middling ground for me, as opposed to my favorite, which is Wide Saragossa Sea. And then the last thing I finished this month was Isabelle de Chery's The Noblemen and Other Romances. This is a collection of short stories by the Dutch aristocrat, writer, composer of the Enlightenment era. This deals a lot with the French Revolution and kind of nobility and the reaction to French Revolution, and kind of the exodus of nobles from France into the Dutch Republic, and just, it was hit and miss for me. Some works were definitely better than others. I really enjoyed The Noblemen and St. Anne, the first and last pieces of fiction in this, but some of the more middling ones and some of the ones that were kind of left unfinished I didn't enjoy as much. She experimented a lot with like epistolary novels, which are not my favorite. I think there are definitely better epistolary examples out there than her work. But I am glad that I read this. I think this is the only English translation of her works, so it's interesting to read something that's kind of within roughly the same period of what I've been reading a lot of this past year, and kind of experience a slightly different perspective. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this if you're interested in it, but just realize that it's not I wouldn't say it's like the best. I think what threw me the most is the back compares her to Jane Austen, and she's definitely not like Austen at all. I would say she's much more Dickens with Dumas mixed in would be my assessment of who she's more like. Definitely not Austen-esque at all. And that kind of threw me. I think I went in expecting, because the back is like, oh, she's like Jane Austen, her Noblemen is so much like Persuasion, and it's really not. Like, elements of the story are similar, but the way that they write and the way that they deal with themes are very, very different. So that's what I read in December. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys are interested in reading any of these, or if you've read any of these, or what you guys read in December, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye!